Right, we have to talk about the biggest earnings report that this quarter have ever seen, because we have to talk about the company that is single-handedly keeping the market alive, Nvidia. Okay, so they dropped their earnings report 2 days ago, and I actually went through it with my Instagram followers. If you're not following me on Instagram, link down below. Okay, just check me out over there. I do post basically daily about new stuff, talk about my personal life, politics, whatever it is that you're interested in for the US market. Okay, but anyway, we have to talk about the Nvidia earnings because it's a little bit quite interesting for us to actually go through this whole entire thing. I'm going to be bringing up this report over here for you guys. Okay, excuse my black eye, it's not exactly healed just yet. It's still a little bit horrible. But yeah, anyway, let's go revenue models. Okay, quarter two of last year and then quarter two of this year comparison, about 101% increase, basically times two. Okay, but quarter to quarter they did increase about 88%, basically about 87% actually. I actually did the calculation as such, but about 88% increase in revenue. Okay, so pretty huge beat, because we were actually expecting them to actually report an earnings of about like $10 billion, and they actually hit it all the way to $13 billion. That's like almost that's almost like 50% above what was kind of expected on the beat on its own. So it was quite a huge beat. They actually beat on almost everything, bottom line, top line, guidance as well. For guidance over here, you can see that for the next quarter, they are expecting it to be at $16 billion plus or minus 2%. Okay, so you know how I always do my videos. I will tell you the good and the bad. Okay, as much as this report sounds like it's all just good news, but the stock doesn't seem to feel the same way. Right now, it is basically 1 a.m. on Saturday. So in the US market right now, it's basically the last trading day. We're in midday at the moment, and Nvidia is trading at about $450. Okay, just to note that before this earnings report even came out, Nvidia was actually at $460. They went all the way up to $519 in the after hours and immediately back down. So today, Nvidia basically did not even increase in the market cap at all. The price is down, everything is down. Okay, and of course, a lot of people might say that this might be because of the Jackson Hole Symposium talk, which Federal Chairman Jerome Powell came out to talk about possible interest rate hikes in the future, things like that. I'm thinking about making a video on that, but I think it will be quite short because he did only come out to talk about like 15 minutes or so. So I might actually concise that and summarize it into multiple stories. So again, check it out down below for my Instagram link. Keep a lookout for that. I think that will be quite interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Nvidia a little bit more. So you can say that the GAAP and non-GAAP gross margin is expected to be at 71.5% and 72.5% respectively. Okay, for the gross margin for the next quarter, right now you can see that the current quarter of gross margin is about 71.2%. So they're actually expecting their margin to continuously grow, which is quite insane, because the thing is that for them as a company where they are doing a lot of manufacturing of all these different chips, designing of all these different chips, they are actually getting so huge of a margin in their business. Okay, think about it. In the last year or so, basically in the last year, they're only making 45.9% in terms of gross margin. Right now they're up 7 to 71.2%, okay, which is quite insane. And they're really just telling you right now, yeah, we're expecting it to continuously go up. Okay, honestly, okay, this part is actually wrong. It's supposed to be 250 points instead of 25.3 points. It's supposed to be 253 points. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, they're expecting it to be about 71.5% to 72.5%. Personally, I think that is pretty good. That means that they do expect margins to still stay relatively high. Okay, this kind of business model, you want a high margin business, you want to be cash rich in this kind of business, and clearly right now Nvidia seems to look like they are simply going to be the case. Okay, so I want to kind of argue a little bit on how this might not necessarily be the magic pill for you to get. I don't want this to make you feel that like, I'm just gonna get Nvidia and I'm gonna go to the moon and all. Okay. Again, I am a little bit biased. I'm not short Nvidia. If anything, I'm actually long Nvidia because I found about 80 random shares of Nvidia in another brokerage account that I actually have, and I forgot about it back then when I bought it for like I think $130 or so. So for me to actually talk about this bad news kind of goes against myself as well. But I just thought that, I kind of want to give you guys this value because I think that is something that we have to really talk about. Okay, so I'm going to open up CNBC. So you can see that Nvidia wants more semiconductor curbs will end US chips maker ability to compete in China. Okay, just to give you guys a little bit of context, what actually happened was Biden basically wants to stop Nvidia, AMD, all these different huge chips designers for them to be selling chips over to China so that they can basically hinder their progress for an AI war, like an AI competition of sorts with China. Okay, so what Biden was basically trying to do is saying that, okay, Nvidia and AMD, you guys are not allowed to sell chips over to China. If you do want to do so, I think there's a lot of different tariffs and different taxes inbound for that. So it's either going to make it really, really expensive for them to do so, otherwise they're just not going to do so at all. So by Biden doing this kind of thing, what actually happened was that the Chinese government, or not really Chinese government, the Chinese tech giants, okay, you're talking about your Alibaba, you're talking about your JD, you're talking about all the different, your Tencent, your ByteDance, all of them are basically saying, okay, we're not going to be getting the best chips in the market after the bill gets passed. So how about right now we just throw in billions and billions of dollars to acquire all these different chips right now, the best quality chips that we can find in the market, let's get them all in right now before that bill actually hits. And that's what actually happened. So over here, you can see that they actually bought up about $5,000, whatever, 5,000 now. They bought up about $5 billion worth of chips. So if you were to actually look at it in retrospect, over here you get $13 billion worth of revenue, and you just minus $5 billion out of it. It's actually about $8 billion of revenue. Okay, I do want to say, if you do a little bit of plus minus, I do not want to say that the Chinese will not buy it from them at all. So I'm just going to take it, instead of taking away $5 billion, I'm going to take about $2 billion away. Okay, $2 billion away from the bulk purchase. So if you take away $2 billion from the bulk purchase, it's about $11 billion worth of revenue. Okay, personally, I do think that $11 billion worth of revenue is still pretty good. Okay, but it's not as big of a beat that as everyone is actually talking about, because $11 billion worth of revenue is slightly around expectation, which is why I'm going back to the same thing. People were actually expecting this huge beat to really be happening in the first place. So it doesn't really come as a surprise. But something that did come as a surprise, I'm not sure if I can find it here. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, you know what? Yeah, but basically what actually happened was that they talked about a $25 billion stock buyback. That was one of the reasons why the stock basically just skyrocketed even higher. So I do want to say that there's two different things of why I think this earning report is not exactly as good as we all think it is. The first thing is, we have to also, I won't say disregard, but in layman term, disregard the bulk purchase from China for us to actually consider this a valid report, for us to actually see more transparently. That's the first thing. The second thing is that because if you were to do so, then the guidance kind of seemed a lot more possible. Okay, because right now, if you don't actually take into consideration of the $5 billion bulk purchase, them actually going for a guidance of from a $13 billion up to a $15 billion, they're talking about a $2 billion increase in the next quarter. That doesn't seem like a lot. Okay, so I think a lot of people thought that, okay, I think guidance is not really that good, and that's why they are going to sell the stock, for example. But if you actually put it into perspective, it's not actually that bad, because now what is actually happening is that they're actually going about getting an $11 billion in actual revenue if you were to disregard the China's bulk purchase. About $11 billion worth of revenue, and you're guiding for $16 billion worth. So you're still guiding at about a 50%, about 50%, maybe 40% increase of growth quarter over quarter. So personally, I think that NVIDIA is still pretty good. But you cannot argue the fact that this company they're currently still at about 230 PE moving forward. So I think that in order for them to really be more of a buy for me, I think we really need to go through with the PE ratio. We have to bring it down severely before I think that it's worth buying more shares. I don't intend to sell my shares just yet. I was actually quite I was quite tempted to sell my shares at about $500. I'm not gonna lie, but I was a little bit worried that the people were just going to be like, okay, the AI boom is confirmed. We are going to the moon. Let's go pump in all the money. Let's get this ball rolling, that sort of thing. And I thought that was what the market was thinking, but apparently not. The market was a bit more cautious. They had a good report. They read it through it. The next pre-market basically dumping the stock, and then they were like thinking, you know what? Maybe it's not all that good just yet. Maybe you study the report a little bit more. People were still being cautious because Jerome Powell was coming up for the Jackson Hole Symposium as well, and that's going to be another so-called like a catalyst for maybe a bigger rate hike in the future, or maybe there was a pause that's going to be incoming, that sort of thing. So yeah, pretty interesting that we are actually seeing all this move from just one stock. Okay, but of course we also have to talk a little bit more about the AI boom. Okay, like I talked about in my previous videos, so whenever I talk about AI, I always talk about Nvidia, I always talk about all your different AI companies and such. What I do think that is a little bit more interesting is that people think that the AI boom is going to effectively be there's basically two camps of people. People either think that AI is going to go to the moon, and they might probably be right. And then there's another camp of people who think that AI is going to be just like what Metaverse was back in 2021. So right now we basically are just in the earlier 2021, basically when everyone was talking about the Metaverse, everyone was talking about how, and every company just mentioning, oh, we have a Metaverse strategy, we have a crypto strategy, we have an NFT strategy. Basically, those companies just went to the moon whenever they mentioned anything to do with Metaverse, NFT, crypto, anything of that sort in 2021. Now, if you actually look at it, it's kind of similar in 2023. Because earlier in 2023, every single earnings report came out with the companies coming out and saying, yeah, we have an AI strategy. Yeah, we have a ChatGPT strategy. Yeah, we have a different, a generative AI strategy. Anyone who talk about AI, poof, another 20%, another 30%, another 50%. Whatever company it is, whichever company comes out with an earning report talking about the AI, talking about the different strategies around the AI, they're going to go up by another 20 to 30%. So, of course, this kind of makes people doubt, perhaps, maybe this is a bubble. And I think that what Nvidia actually came up with today, with this earning report, kind of makes it quite concrete that we are not looking at AI being a huge bubble. It is true that there are probably going to be a lot of different companies who are going to fail because they're going to be putting copious amount of money into the AI strategy and not work. But if we're talking about the backbone and the legs of AI, such as Nvidia, such as AMD, such as Taiwan Semiconductor, all these different companies who are designing chips, who are manufacturing chips, who are writing the code for those chips, and those different AI models around it, those companies are most likely going to survive. But different companies who are trying to adapt these different things into their business, those are the ones that I'll be slightly more worried about. Those companies who are saying that they are going to be adapting AI strategies very, very strongly into those companies, I think those companies are the more dangerous ones, because I think they are just trying to use all these different buzzwords to fluff up the stock price for themselves. And that's where my concern is. I think the bubble is going to be happening with those companies rather than the bubble being with your Nvidia, with your AMD, with your Taiwan Semiconductor. I think those kind of stocks well, the AMDs and the Nvidia, I think those are the safer ones. Albeit that, you know, Nvidia is not exactly doing particularly well today. They're actually already down about 4% today. So I'm not saying that Nvidia is the worst or the best stock to really get into. I just want to give you guys a different perspective on the whole entire earnings report, because I've been reading up a lot of the earnings report. I've been looking at different people's review of the earnings report, and everybody is just saying that it's good. A lot of people are not really talking about how this is not exactly the best earning report. They're not really looking through it properly. And I just want to give you guys a second view. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.